Pause for just a brief moment, because what you are about to take in could completely shift the way you understand your own love story. Imagine discovering that someone deeply connected to your soul has been carrying a truth so powerful and so unexpected that it holds the genuine potential to transform everything you thought you understood about your future. What if the delays that have been wearing you down were never signs of rejection at all? What if the silence you have been trying so hard to make sense of was actually preparing both of you for a moment so significant that neither of you could have truly handled it before right now? Most people spend long years searching for answers out in the external world, never pausing to realize that the greatest revelations always begin from within. The strange coincidences, the unexpected endings, the dreams that simply refuse to leave your mind, and the quiet, persistent feeling that something life-changing is drawing closer may not be random occurrences at all. They could be individual pieces of a much larger and more meaningful story that has been quietly unfolding well beyond the reach of your conscious awareness. Today, we are going to look honestly at why the most significant news from your soulmate does not arrive when you demand or force it. It arrives precisely when you are finally ready and genuinely able to understand it. Stay present until the very end, because the final insight may completely change the way you relate to love, to destiny, and to the remarkable journey that is still waiting ahead of you. Many people move through their lives holding the belief that if their soulmate truly had something important to say, it would have already been said and heard by now. They imagine that destiny operates on a straightforward and predictable schedule, where love simply appears the moment they feel ready to receive it. Yet life rarely bends itself to match the expectations of the conscious and impatient mind. The deepest and most meaningful messages do not arrive through force, through impatience, or through endless and exhausting searching. They emerge quietly and in their own time, often after an invisible process has already been unfolding beneath the surface for months, or in some cases, even for years. What if the significant news your soulmate carries is already moving in your direction, not through ordinary spoken words, but through the unseen currents of genuine transformation that connect two lives long before they ever stand face to face with one another? Every meaningful relationship begins in a place that cannot be fully accessed by logic alone. Before two people truly and deeply recognize each other, something begins shifting inside both of them simultaneously. Old beliefs begin loosening their grip. Priorities start to reorganize themselves. Habits that once felt as permanent as stone suddenly begin to feel hollow and purposeless. This is not coincidence happening around you. It is the inner world actively preparing itself to receive something that the previous version of you could never have fully understood or properly welcomed. The message your soulmate carries is not simply a piece of information waiting to be delivered. It is an invitation to become someone genuinely capable of receiving a deeper and more honest kind of love than you have encountered before. Think carefully about the times when life unexpectedly pushed you away from people, places, or dreams you were completely convinced you could never survive losing. In those moments, the experience probably felt profoundly unfair or deeply confusing and hard to accept. Yet when you look back with the perspective that only time can provide, many of those endings quietly redirected your path toward experiences and lessons that shaped your character in ways nothing else could have. The same hidden and purposeful process may be unfolding in your life right now. What appears on the surface to be frustrating delay may actually be essential preparation taking place beneath what you can see. What feels like silence may actually be significant movement happening just beyond your current awareness. The most powerful messages rarely arrive when the mind is saturated with fear, desperation, or an urgent need for certainty and control. A restless and anxious heart often cannot recognize what is standing directly in front of it, because it is too busy bracing for disappointment to remain open to possibility. That is precisely why life sometimes creates extended periods of waiting that feel uncomfortable and unproductive. During those seasons, something gradual and important happens. Your attention slowly and naturally shifts inward. You begin examining and questioning old patterns that you previously accepted without thought. You become aware of emotional wounds you had been ignoring or burying beneath distractions. You start understanding more clearly why certain relationships kept repeating the same painful lessons no matter how many times you hoped for a different result. Without fully realizing what is happening, you are making genuine space for something entirely and refreshingly different to enter. Your soulmate may also be walking through their own version of this same transformation at the very same time. While you sit wondering why nothing visible seems to be changing or moving, they may be quietly confronting fears they have carried since the earliest parts of their life, releasing old relationships that no longer serve who they are becoming, healing from disappointments that left marks they never fully addressed, or discovering parts of themselves they never previously knew existed within them. Two separate journeys unfolding independently can still be moving with quiet purpose toward the very same destination. Timing is never only about what the calendar shows. It is fundamentally about emotional readiness and inner preparation. This hidden message does not always arrive spoken aloud in clear and direct words. Sometimes it expresses itself through unexpected opportunities that appear without warning, through unlikely and perfectly timed meetings, through sudden changes in direction that initially make no sense, or through an unmistakable and growing feeling that life itself is asking you to pay closer attention to what is happening around and within you. The outer event becomes deeply meaningful because of the inner transformation that has already quietly taken place before it arrives. Without that prior transformation, the very same event might pass completely unnoticed and without impact. Many people search endlessly and exhaustingly for signs in the world outside themselves, while consistently overlooking the quiet and reliable wisdom that is steadily growing within. Intuition grows considerably stronger when fear gradually becomes quieter. Real clarity appears when the constant and draining noise of the overactive mind begins to naturally settle and fade. The more honestly and deeply you come to understand yourself, the easier it becomes to recognize the people and connections that genuinely and rightfully belong in your life. In that very real sense, your soulmate's significant news is not racing toward the person you used to be. It is finding its way carefully and precisely to the person you are in the process of becoming. Because only that evolved version of you can truly hear its meaning and wholeheartedly embrace the future it is intended to reveal. One of the most widespread misunderstandings about soulmate connections is the belief that love on its own is sufficient to bring two people together in a lasting and meaningful way. While love may absolutely create the possibility of a profound relationship, it does not automatically generate the emotional maturity that is required to sustain one through all the challenges that real life brings. Before any outer reunion can genuinely happen, something considerably more important must first take place within each individual involved. The most enduring and meaningful relationships are not constructed on the foundation of longing alone, but on the solid ground of genuine personal transformation. If your soulmate truly carries significant news that is meant for you, that message most often arrives only after both individuals have become genuinely capable of receiving it without the distortion of fear, insecurity, or illusion clouding their perception. Real transformation is rarely dramatic or obvious in its early stages. It most often begins with quiet and uncomfortable moments that gently force you to examine the parts of yourself you have spent years carefully avoiding and stepping around. You may find yourself beginning to question why certain relationships in your life always seemed to conclude in the same painful and familiar way, or why you repeatedly found yourself drawn to people who reflected your deepest fears rather than your deepest and most genuine values. These questions are not indications that something is fundamentally wrong with you as a person. They are sincere invitations to become more genuinely conscious of the patterns that have been quietly shaping your emotional life and your choices within it. Many people search earnestly for a soulmate while unknowingly carrying emotional wounds that distort and color the way they experience love when it arrives. Past disappointments, experiences of betrayal, feelings of rejection, or the deep pain of abandonment can create invisible expectations that subtly influence every new relationship that follows. Without fully realizing what is happening, the mind begins protecting itself by quietly assuming that history will inevitably repeat itself once again. It becomes a kind of emotional habit to expect disappointment rather than remaining genuinely open to the possibility of authentic connection. This protective pattern may feel safer than vulnerability, but it also holds real and lasting love at a careful and lonely distance. Inner transformation asks something courageous of you. Instead of focusing primarily on why someone else failed to love you in the way you deserved, you begin turning the honest question inward and asking what fears have been silently directing your own choices and responses. You begin noticing how frequently you reach for external validation instead of seeking genuine mutual understanding. You recognize the moments when insecurity speaks far louder than trust and distorts what you are actually seeing in front of you. You become aware with growing clarity that many of the emotional battles you face are not being created by the present moment at all, but by unresolved and unexamined experiences that belong to the past. As this awareness deepens and takes root within you, something genuinely remarkable begins to change in the way you move through your life. Your sense of identity becomes considerably less dependent on the approval and reactions of people around you. You no longer feel the same compulsion to chase after people who consistently create confusion and uncertainty rather than genuine peace. You stop interpreting every silence as a direct form of rejection and every delay as a permanent and irreversible loss. Rather than exhausting yourself trying to control every possible outcome, you gradually develop a quiet and grounded confidence that allows life to unfold naturally without requiring you to abandon your own deep sense of worth in the process. This inner confidence transforms not only how you perceive and relate to yourself, but also the quality and character of the relationships you naturally begin to draw into your life. At the same time, your soulmate may be moving through a transformation that is equally significant and demanding in its own way. They may be finding the courage to confront fears they never openly admitted carrying. They may be releasing attachments that no longer reflect who they are genuinely becoming. They may be absorbing lessons that simply could not have been learned through comfort or convenience alone. Their journey may look entirely different from yours on the surface, yet both paths can be moving with quiet and steady intention toward the very same meaningful destination. Growth does not unfold in identical ways for every person because every individual carries a completely unique history and set of wounds. But genuine and lasting connection very often requires both people to arrive at a place of greater emotional honesty before they can truly and fully recognize one another for who they really are. This process can feel deeply frustrating, precisely because it unfolds well beyond the limits of ordinary measured time. There are moments when absolutely nothing appears to be shifting or changing on the visible surface of things. Yet beneath that apparent stillness, old and limiting beliefs are quietly dissolving, and new and more liberating perspectives are steadily and surely taking root in their place. It is also about the deeper realization that the person who is finally ready to receive that message is no longer the same person who once desperately searched for it. By becoming more genuinely self-aware, emotionally grounded, and honestly connected to your own inner truth, you naturally create the conditions in which real and lasting love can enter your life without being overshadowed by fear, confusion, or the accumulated weight of everything that came before. Life has a truly remarkable way of delivering its greatest turning points disguised as completely ordinary moments that seem to carry no special significance at first glance. Many people imagine that if something truly extraordinary were about to unfold in their love life, it would announce itself with obvious and unmistakable signs that could not possibly be missed or misread. Yet reality has a habit of unfolding in a far more quiet and mysterious manner than that. The most unexpected and meaningful changes rarely announce themselves in advance or give any warning of their arrival. They appear quietly and without fanfare, hidden inside events that initially seem confusing, disappointing, or entirely unrelated to love and connection. The significant news your soulmate carries may not arrive in the form you have been picturing or waiting for. Because genuine transformation has a consistent habit of breaking through expectations before it reveals the deeper truth that was waiting beneath them all along. Human beings naturally and almost instinctively become attached to specific outcomes and preferred scenarios. We create detailed and elaborate pictures in our minds of how love should appear, when it should happen, and exactly who should be present in the story when it does. These expectations provide a comforting sense of control over something that is fundamentally beyond our control. But they can also quietly become invisible barriers that prevent us from recognizing what is actually being offered to us. When reality unfolds in a different direction than we anticipated, the mind tends to interpret the unexpected as failure rather than as possibility opening up. A genuine opportunity gets dismissed because it does not match the old and familiar fantasy we had constructed. A meaningful encounter gets overlooked entirely because it arrives through unfamiliar and unexpected circumstances rather than the ones we had rehearsed in our imagination. Sometimes the greatest surprise of all is not what actually happens, but the quiet realization that what you once believed you wanted was never truly what you needed at the deepest level. Unexpected change very often begins with an ending of some kind. A relationship that appeared permanent and stable suddenly draws to a close. A long-held plan that felt certain falls completely apart. Someone you had come to depend on walks away without offering any explanation you can hold on to. In those raw and disorienting moments, it feels entirely natural to believe that life is working against you and your happiness. Yet endings carry a unique and underappreciated ability to create open space for experiences that could never have found their way into your life otherwise. What registers as loss today may quietly and in its own time become the very doorway through which your future steps in to greet you. The mind remains focused on what has disappeared and been taken away, while life is already busy preparing what comes next just beyond the edges of your current vision. There are also moments when change makes its arrival through simple and seemingly ordinary coincidences that feel too layered with meaning to dismiss or ignore. You choose to take an unfamiliar route and cross paths with someone completely unexpected. You reconnect with someone from your past after years of complete silence between you. A conversation you nearly talked yourself out of having leaves a mark that stays with you long afterward. A decision that appeared entirely insignificant in the moment quietly becomes the starting point of a completely new and unanticipated direction in your life. These moments exist as reminders that life is not always shaped and redirected by dramatic and deliberate choices made at obvious crossroads. Sometimes the smallest and most easily overlooked events carry the most significant consequences precisely because they occur at exactly the right moment in time. The same kind of unexpected inner movement may also be taking place within your soulmate's life right now. While you picture them standing completely still and unchanged, they may be moving through profound internal shifts that neither of you could have predicted or planned for. A significant change in their work, a deep personal awakening, the ending of a relationship that was no longer healthy, or an honest and life-altering realization about what truly matters can completely redirect the course of their journey in ways that are not yet visible to you from where you stand. These experiences may appear entirely unrelated on the surface and seem to have nothing to do with the connection between you. Yet they are very often preparing them to meet you with a quality of honesty, emotional depth, and genuine openness that simply would not have been possible before those experiences reshaped them. One of the most surprising truths about love is that it most often arrives after you have released the exhausting need to force it into happening on your timeline. This does not in any way mean abandoning hope or giving up on connection. It means letting go of the draining and ultimately counterproductive need to control every detail and outcome. When your attention returns fully to your own growth, your own sense of purpose, and your own inner sense of balance, you naturally and effortlessly become more present to what is actually happening around you. You begin noticing genuine opportunities that your previous state of anxious focus caused you to completely overlook. You recognize real kindness and substance when it appears, instead of endlessly chasing surface-level excitement that never truly satisfies. Your choices become guided by hard-earned wisdom rather than by fear and desperation. In this more grounded and open state, life has genuine room to surprise you, because your vision is no longer narrowed and distorted by urgency or by rigid and inflexible expectations about how things must look. The significant news your soulmate carries may ultimately have very little to do with dramatic words or carefully planned confessions, and everything to do with unexpected and perfectly aligned timing. It may arrive after a long season during which you genuinely believed that absolutely nothing was shifting or changing in any meaningful direction. It may emerge from circumstances you once categorized firmly as setbacks and disappointments. It may ultimately reveal that every unexpected twist, every frustrating delay, and every question that went unanswered for far too long was quietly and purposefully leading both of you toward a meeting that could only have happened after you had each become genuinely different and more prepared people.